What has an eye but cannot see?
Is it a needle?
You got it. A needle, that's right. A classic riddle just to get us started. And speaking of brain teasers, today we're going on a deep dive into a whole collection of puzzles. Get ready to test your wit and maybe learn a little something along the way.
Puzzles are so fascinating, aren't they? They're entertaining, but also make you think. And they've been around for centuries in all sorts of cultures. Really shows you how universal that appeal is.
Exactly. And the book we'll be exploring today, the Canterbury Puzzles, really takes that historical aspect and runs with it.
Oh, I love that book. Published back in 1919 by 𝙀𝙗𝙪 Dudeney. He was brilliant, weaving all these puzzles into the world of Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales.
Such a clever idea. It's like you're right there with those pilgrims heading to Canterbury, but instead of just stories, they're throwing brain-twisting puzzles at each other.
I can just picture it. Those colorful characters from the tales, challenging each other with riddles. What a journey that must have been.
So get ready to exercise those mental muscles because we're going to present you with some of these puzzles.
Oh.
And we'll break them down together. Look at what makes them tick.
You might even have a few eureka moments as you figure them out. Who knows? Maybe you'll solve them before we even explain them.
All right, let's dive in. Our first stop is Puzzles on the Pilgrimage, the first section of the book. And here we meet our first 3 challenges, each connected to a specific character from the tales.
It's like the pilgrims are gathered at the Tabard Inn, about to set off, but first, they decide to have a little mental sparring.
Love it. And first up is the Reeves puzzle, coming from the estate manager, the Reeve. Imagine this. You're a cheesemaker, and you have a stack of 8 cheeses, biggest at the bottom, smallest on top, a real cheese tower.
Quite a stack. And your task is to move the whole thing to a different spot. But there are 2 rules. You can only move 1 cheese at a time, and you can never put a larger cheese on top of a smaller one.
So how do you move that cheese tower without it all collapsing? That's the puzzle. It's not about strength, it's all about strategy.
It's what's called recursive thinking. You break the problem into smaller, similar problems and solve those one by one. It's a concept that comes up a lot, even beyond cheese stacks.
Next we have the partners puzzle.
Yeah.
This one comes from the partner, always a bit of a tricky character, selling relics and all that.
Oh, this one's great for testing your spatial reasoning. You're given a map with several towns connected by straight roads.
And your goal. You have to trace a route that goes through every single town, but only once. You have to stick to those straight roads.
It's like you're a medieval traveler trying to find the most efficient path. You can start and end anywhere you like, but each town is a one-time visit.
Exactly. And lastly, we come to the Miller's puzzle. And of course, it's the Miller, known for being a bit boisterous, shall we say.
And this puzzle is all about numbers. You've got 9 sacks of flour, each one with a number on it.
The challenge is to rearrange those sacks so that when you multiply the numbers on any 2 sacks next to each other, the answer is the number on the sack in between them.
Sounds simple, but it really makes you think about patterns and relationships between numbers. And sometimes the most elegant solution is staring you right in the face.
Now, we're not going to give away the answers just yet. We want you to have a chance to crack these medieval codes yourselves.
Take your time, think them through, and we'll be back soon to go over the solutions. And maybe some of the interesting insights that come along with them. From that cozy Tabard Inn, let's travel to a grander setting, shall we?
Sounds good to me. Where are we headed?
To Sulpham Hall Castle, home to Sir Hugh de Fortibus, a knight who loves puzzles as much as he loves chivalry.
A knight with a passion for brain teasers. I can already tell I'm going to like this guy.
You're going to love his puzzles, too. They're clever and tricky, perfect for testing the minds of his guests.
Well, let's hear one. What kind of challenge did Sir Hugh cook up?
One of his favorites is called Tilting at the Ring. Picture this. You're a knight, lance in hand, charging towards a ring hanging from a bar. The challenge is to adjust the bar's height as you gallop past, so that ring catches perfectly on your lance.
Wow. Talk about a test of skill. It's not just about being a good rider, is it?
Not at all. You need precise timing, a good understanding of spatial relationships, and maybe even a little bit of showmanship.
I can imagine Sir Hugh watching with a twinkle in his eye as his guests attempt this one. What else did he have up his sleeve?
Well, he also enjoyed a good architectural puzzle. There's one called the Donjon Keep window.
Sounds intriguing. What's that one all about?
Sir Hugh wanted a square window for his castle's keep. Simple enough, right? But he wanted the window to have 8 lights, each with sides of equal length.
Ah, I see. So the challenge is in how you divide that square to get those 8 equal-sided lights. I'm already picturing all sorts of geometric shapes.
It's a puzzle that really makes you think outside the box, or rather, inside the square. But 𝘀𝙘𝙪 didn't stop at just visual puzzles. He also enjoyed a good riddle.
Like what? Give us a taste of a 𝘀𝙘𝙪 riddle.
All right, how about this? A snail is climbing up a flagpole. Each day it climbs a certain distance, but each night it slips back down a bit. How many days will it take the snail to reach the top?
A classic. I bet there's a twist, though. It wouldn't be a 𝘀𝙘𝙪 riddle without a little something extra, right?
You're absolutely right. Dudeney cleverly links the height of that flagpole to 𝘀𝙘𝙪's own height, which he never tells you outright. You have to pay attention to all the details in this one.
So it's not just about math. It's about reading between the lines, picking up on those subtle clues.
Exactly. Now let's move on from the grandeur of 𝘾𝙾𝙪𝙪 Castle to a quieter place.
A change of scenery. Lead the way.
To Riddlewell Abbey we go, home to the merry monks of Riddlewell.
Merry monks. That sounds delightful. What are they known for?
Their love of puzzles, of course. These
Yeah.
monks find joy in intellectual pursuits, in the challenge of solving a good riddle. It's part of their contemplative life.
I love that. So what kind of puzzles did these merry monks come up with?
Oh, all sorts. One interesting one is called the riddle of the fish pond.
All right, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Imagine a circular pond surrounded by 12 baskets of fish. You need to move 6 of those fish, one at a time, passing each fish over 2 other fish before you put it in a different basket.
Okay, I'm following so far. Where's the tricky part?
You have to do all that while circling the pond as few times as possible. It really makes you think about the best route, how to be as efficient as possible.
It's like a little dance around the fish pond, trying not to step on any toes. What a fun image.
And then there's the riddle of the sack wine. This one involves a bit of mischief, courtesy of Brother Benjamin, the Abbey's cellarer.
Oh. What did he get up to?
Well, each day he would sneakily take a pint of wine from a cask and replace it with a pint of water.
A bit naughty, this Brother Benjamin. So what's the puzzle here?
Figuring out how much wine is left after 30 days of these sneaky swaps. It might seem simple, but it makes you think about ratios and proportions.
Those little swabs add up, don't they? And finally, what's the last puzzle from these merry monks?
This one's called the Riddle of the Crusaders. A group of crusaders can form a perfect square, but when a stranger joins them, they can suddenly arrange themselves into 13 smaller squares.
The 13 squares. That's a lot. So what are we trying to figure out?
The original number of crusaders before that stranger showed up. You need to picture those squares, think about the math involved.
A puzzle that brings together history and math. I like it. Now, before we reveal the solutions to all these riddles, we want you to have some time to think them over.
Let your mind wander, explore different possibilities, see if you can unlock the secrets of these medieval brain teasers before we come back to discuss the answers.
Welcome back. Ready to unlock the secrets of the Canterbury Puzzles.
I hope you've had some time to ponder those riddles. They really are a testament to how puzzles can captivate us, make us think.
Absolutely. It's not just about finding the answer. It's about the journey, those aha moments when you figure something out.
Exactly. So let's revisit the rivs puzzle with that massive cheese tower. Did you figure out how to move it without breaking the rule?
I'll admit, that one had me stumped for a bit. What's the trick?
It's all about that recursive thinking we mentioned. You start with the smallest cheese, move it to the destination, then the next smallest cheese goes to the temporary spot, and you put the smallest cheese on top of it.
I see. You build up little stacks, always making sure a larger cheese never sits on a smaller one. It's like a delicate cheese dance.
That's a great way to put it.
No.
Now, how about the Pardoners puzzle? Did you find a route through those towns, visiting each one only once?
Well, I tried a few different paths, a lot of back and forth, but I think I got there eventually. Is there just one right answer?
Actually, there are often multiple solutions to these kinds of puzzles. The key is really in the approach, being able to visualize that map, plan your route carefully so you don't cross over yourself.
It's like a medieval version of those connect the dots puzzles. What about the Miller's puzzle with the sacks of flour? Did you crack the number code?
That one can be a bit tricky, but once you see the pattern, it all clicks into place. It highlights how numbers are related, how even simple relationships can create complex puzzles.
It's a good reminder to look for those underlying patterns, those connections.
Now, back to 𝘾𝙾𝙪𝙪 Castle and those nightly challenges. Did you conquer tilting at the ring?
I have to admit, I'm not sure I would have done very well with that one in real life. I think I would have ended up with a lot of missed rings and maybe even a bruised ego.
It's definitely a puzzle that would require a lot of practice and skill in the real world. It highlights the physics involved, how objects move through space.
And what about the donjon keep window? Did you figure out how to divide that square into 8 equal-sided lights.
That one might have tricked you into thinking only about squares, but the solution actually uses triangles. A good reminder that sometimes you have to shift your perspective, look at things from a different angle.
I love that. And how about that persistent snail-scaling Sir Hugh's flagstaff? Did you calculate how long it took to reach the top?
Did you remember to look for the clue about the flagpole's height hidden within the description of Sir Hugh himself? It's all about those subtle details.
It's amazing how Dudeney wove those clues in, making you really pay attention to the wording. Now, on to those merry monks at Riddlewell Abbey. The riddle of the fish pond was a fun one.
Did you manage to move those fish around the pond efficiently?
It really makes you think about your moves, finding a pattern that minimizes those trips around the pond.
Spatial reasoning at its finest. And how about Brother Benjamin and the riddle of the sack wine? Did you solve his mischievous puzzle?
I'll admit, I had to think about that one for a bit. Those daily pint swaps, they really add up over time, don't they?
They do. It highlights how even small actions, repeated consistently, can lead to significant results.
And finally, what about the riddle of the Crusaders? Did you figure out the original number of soldiers based on those square formations?
That one was a great example of how math and geometry work together, how you can use equations to represent and solve visual patterns.
It's a reminder that math is more than just numbers. It's a way of understanding the world around us, finding those hidden connections.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the Canterbury Puzzles.
What a journey it's been. From cheese towers to nightly challenges to the quiet contemplation of monks.
These puzzles, they remind us to keep our minds sharp, to embrace the challenge, and to enjoy those aha moments when we finally crack the code.
It's been a real pleasure exploring this book with you. And to our listeners, keep those minds active, keep puzzling, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.